Hey, Hattie, good to see you, brother. all doing well out there. And welcome back to Forever Conscious Research Channel. Just as a reminder, this channel is for educational purposes only. And tonight we've got a short one, or this morning I should say. Gonna be a short one, and interesting case to say the least. All right, TJ Torrance is the experiencer's name. Ends up going through like a mechanical gate type thing when he leaves his body in the hospital, and runs into a shape-shifting entity, and it was had blob-like features. Then it has a face that is made up of cubes. So there's just a cube outline, I guess you can say, but multiple cubes, and with containing various skin colors on top of it. And what's also interesting is TJ mentions how this entity was like clearly trying to convince him. And then, well, you'll see. We'll just get right into it because it's kind of late, and I want to just fly through this one. Good stuff. So, all right, let's get into it. This is TJ.
So it's like 4 in the morning, 4 in the morning on the 4th of July. And my left arm was dislocated. And for me, when my arm is dislocated, it's not the usual or regular dislocation. Because when I was 16, I was jumped. And the doctors said that my shoulder ligaments would never fully heal correctly for the rest of my life. And that the next time my arm dislocates, it'll be a lot more severe and a lot more painful. And it won't be so easy to pop back into place. So my arm actually never gave out until the 4th of July, 2020. 10 plus years later. And I ended up having to go to the hospital because I could not pop my shoulder back into its place.
Now, I'm not going to drone on too much, but this is something I've dealt with for a long time. I busted my elbow and shoulder in a ski practice accident. And then also messed it up in a car accident in the middle of a blizzard. The funny thing is I hit an ambulance in the blizzard. So it brought me to the hospital. Anyways, the point is I know exactly what he's going through, because the shoulder, you have to kind of know your limitations after an injury like that. And I've had multiple surgeries. It just doesn't cut it. And I'm telling you, this thing pops out. It is the most painful damn thing you can experience. And so he's in this situation where he's probably had to pop it in many times before, but there are times you can't, and you got to go to the hospital. And so, this brutal stuff, man.
So I get to Strong.
Hey, Pale.
Then, the ambulance came, picked me up, took me to Strong Hospital. They put me in a room, and these doctors come into the room, and they tried 9 excruciating, unsuccessful attempts on trying to pop my arm back into place.
My God.
It got to a point where I sort of stopped them and was like, look, I can't do this. I can't allow you guys to put me through excruciating pain. They gave me a bunch of morphine and opioids to numb the pain. And for some reason, I still felt, the pain.
Yeah, you're not, look, if you get a dislocated shoulder or anything that dislocates, no amount of painkillers is going to solve the problem. The damn thing needs to go back in. I used to, I'm not joking. I used to, sorry, I'm not going to rant too much, but I used to bash my shoulder into the wall. Like I would run and angle it at a certain direction so it would go back in. Because sometimes you could just pull it and yank it right back in. And then other times it just, you got to get a little violent.
Reason, I still felt, you know, the pain. It didn't feel like it numbed anything down. So it gets to a point where I stop and I'm like, yo, I can't do this. If there's a way for you guys to put me to sleep, if there's a way for you guys to, you know, sedate me and then pop my arm back into place, if that, you know, makes it easier on y'all, makes it easier on me, then I would rather do that than for y'all to try another excruciating, unsuccessful attempt on popping my arm back into place. So they did not want to do that, but I guess I sort of forced them. I told them, you know, I wasn't gonna allow them to try to manhandle my arm back into place again. So they agreed to sedate me and give me a sedation procedure to pop my shoulder back into place. And they gave me like 10, it was like 10, 12 different warnings because I had so many opioids and morphine in my system already that if they would have put the medicine that puts you to sleep, if they would have given that to me on top of all that stuff in my system, that it had very, very bad side effects, right? One of the side effects that I remember them saying was that I might not wake back up. And that even if I do wake back up, that if once I go home, there may be a time where I may not wake up once I get home.
Yeah, just so you know, side effect could just death. So just side effect death.
Maybe there may be a time where I may not wake up once I get home, you know, and fall asleep or whatever. At that point, I really didn't care what the warnings were because I was in so much pain. You know, at that point, I was ready to undergo anything, whatever it took, other than them manhandling my arm back into place, which was excruciating and unsuccessful. 9 different times. I was not taking that route, but I was ready to endure anything else, including taking those risks to finally get rid of the pain. So I agreed to the risk or whatever. They give me the medicine to put me to sleep, right? And as I start to feel the medicine kick in, I started to say a prayer because I remembered, you know, one of the warnings being, I may not wake back up from this procedure. So, you know, I said a prayer. I said, you know, for God to be with me during this procedure, and that regardless of what I want, to let whatever you want, you know, like let whatever you want to happen, you know, since God knows what's best for us better than we do, right? And
so he's already opening up the gates with the prayer. There's a belief system already cooked in the books. And Dusty asks, why wouldn't they keep you at the hospital and monitor you, then send you home? I'm sure they have, but they're working on the procedure at this point, you know, for him to, because his shoulder still is dislocated, so they're just trying to get the damn thing in. But I think this is completely wacky. It makes you wonder what the hell they're doing to get it back in. I mean, really, most of the time they just yank it. They pop it right back in. So it's like, what could they do under anesthesia that they couldn't do with him awake? Not like, you know, you really want to be awake for something like that, but Christ, they've already doped him up with morphine. And then they're going to give him a IV sleeping med on top of it. I mean, come on. It's a little overkill. And, well, that's what sends him in the NDE. Hey, Quietist and Voidwalker.
So that was my prayer.
Right.
And as soon as I said, amen, it was as if time didn't stop, but it got very slow. It damn near stopped, as in the nurses and the doctors, their movements slowed down, like slow motion. And I remember looking at the clock on the wall and looking at the second hand move in slow motion. And then the whiteness on the doctor's coats began to stretch out. It's like stretched across my vision to the point where as they moved, like the whiteness stretched and until it covered my whole vision, and all I was able to see was white, like a white space. And I started to feel myself float upward in this white space. And the only thing I can compare the white space to is to like a blank sheet of white printing paper.
Now, you got to keep in mind that, you know, he's in a hospital, in an operating room. There's obviously a lot of white light there. And he's talking about the jackets, too. So the last thing he's seeing on his way out is a lot of white.
It's literally just white space. I was floating upward through.
And there are other cases of people who go under where they have this phenomenon with like everything is white. It's definitely different when someone's being put under with drugs versus someone who has a traumatic incident, and you know what I'm saying. Just it's weird how these things can differ a little bit, but buckle up because here we go.
And I'm not, I'm not like scared, or I'm not my bad, that dude was a little weird. I wasn't scared. I wasn't like I didn't know what was going on. I was still able to think and look around, but I wasn't able to see. The only thing I was able to see was white, and I'm floating lightly upward through this white space, and a mechanical wall appears like right in front of my face, and for 3-4 seconds, and then the mechanical wall fades away and disappears. And when it faded away, I started extremely shooting through this white space. Like I was insanely shooting upward through this white space, extremely fast.
So you can compare this to the tunnel for sure. Almost the exact same characteristics, except it's a white space. We're not really getting any detail besides that there was a door. So the door would represent the entrance to the tunnel. We'll just call it the white space portal, I guess, or something, teleporter.
To the point where that did scare me, because I had never moved so fast ever before. Like no roller coaster or car, motorcycle, nothing falling off the third floor of a building, nothing. It was as if I was traveling faster than the speed of light, or I was traveling as fast as a bullet travels. and I'm shooting upward through this white space. And, you know, I don't see anything else but the white. So it's not like I was able to look down or left and right and tell that I was moving. I sort of felt like my altitude going upward. And I was able to feel myself shooting upward extremely fast. So it gets to, eventually I end up on top of a mountain, and the sky, you know, like the sky was flat and white. And I'm on top of this mountain, and
so the sky was white and flat. Maybe he's in a cube.
I'm confronted by this person, or I should say entity, that this entity had a man's face, and his face had
That's so weird.
Had squares of every color skin tone, from black all the way to white. And his neck had squares of elements. And the elements that I was able to notice was, one square was silver. I felt like I saw a square that was gold. And then I saw a square that looked like the bark of a tree. And from the neck down, he had, his body was made out of like a black, shapeless, formless blob that moved in a way that made me believe or think that he was able to make any shape or image that it wanted to at will with it.
There you go. There you go. I mean, you got the, you know, open admission of the illusion, right? I mean, it's a really, really wacky case. And Quietus is spot on. He left a great comment. Says, the machinery aspect mentioned in these scenarios and is presented in esoteric movies, games is so intriguing and yet terrifying. Yeah, I mean, it's wild. Even in Soul, it's there. You know, the floor drops out, and it's like a door that opens. Yeah, I mean, it's all over the place, and pops up in these cases from time to time.
And I also noticed that on top of this mountain, the entity was holding me with a part of the black blob. And I start having a conversation, a very interesting, philosophical, wise, enlightened conversation with the entity. And we're like, I'm excited. You know, I felt excited. I felt like, you know, the conversation we was having was very enlightening and interesting.
Was I just muted? I have to get used to this. All right. I'm sorry. I'm gonna back it up a bit, guys. All right. I was talking to Harold, and
that
Also address the quietest comment.
formless blob.
Okay. All right. So I'll just repeat what Quietus said. Sorry, guys. They mentioned the machinery aspect mentioned in these scenarios and presented in esoteric movies, games is so intriguing and yet terrifying. Yeah, it pops up regularly, especially like you said, movies, games, and we do see them in these cases. Not all the time, but it pops up. It's and there's a big correlation there. So, the other thing I wanted to respond to was Harold, because he just entered the chat. Welcome, brother. I was just curious. He mentioned a black blob. And I know in your pre-birth memory, and I could be wrong, I don't remember if you said black blob or black mass, like Earth was like a black bubbling mass of evil or whatever it was. But yeah, I'm curious what you said, and it's kind of interesting to hear him say this, and perhaps there's some sort of weird correlation there.
Of like a black, shapeless, formless blob that moved in a way that made me believe or think that he was able to make any shape.
Does that resonate at all, Harold?
Or image that it wanted to at will with it. And I also noticed that on top of this mountain, the entity was holding me with the a part of the black blob.
So he's being held by this. Yeah, the black goo, loose soup. Yeah. Interesting, right?
A part of the black blob. And I start having a conversation, a very interesting, philosophical, wise, enlightened conversation with the entity. And we're like, I'm excited. I felt excited. I felt like, the conversation we was having was very enlightening and interesting. And the facial expression on the entity was, when it spoke back to me, was as if it was just as excited and interested in what we were talking about, and just as excited and interested in me being present. And I remember feeling in the conversation being excited.
It was interested in him being present. That's right. Pay attention to the entity, because the entity wants undivided attention at all times. How they get us to go along and end up back in this dumpster fire or reincarnate. Ugh.
I remember feeling in the conversation being excited, talking with excitement and being in awe as to what type of things it was telling me, like about time and space, reality, the universe.
So don't you find it interesting how often in cases we see this type of thing? It's like where these entities will, it's like they're trolling them. Well, of course they're trolling them, right? But they're trolling them by giving them the secrets to the universe and how Earth was created, why Earth is the way it is. I mean, and on, how everything functions, on and on and on. This is the stuff that pops up constantly in cases. But yet when they come back, they have no freaking clue. None whatsoever. No memories, nothing. And a lot of times they'll openly admit that they weren't allowed to take that information back here. I mean, come on.
It was very philosophical. And so I'm going back and forth with this entity. And it gets to a point where I sort of take everything in, and I say to myself inside of my head, as I'm going back and forth with the entity, I say, I may be dead. And I remember after saying that, I remember looking over my shoulders and sort of looking around, and I guess I was taking in what I felt if this was death. And I remember saying to myself, okay. And, the place that I was in while I was speaking to this entity made me feel a vibe that was so comfortable and peaceful that when I acknowledged and became aware that I may have just died, and it made me feel so good that in that moment I didn't care to come back here.
It made him feel so good. He didn't care about coming back. How many times do we see this, right? Like they're being totally manipulated, and then sometimes we'll see how lost my train of thought. I apologize. Oh yeah, they're manipulated and under this love bomb, or this incredible power, energy. Let's say energy, not power, but energy. And they always talk about not wanting to come back, but then something happens. Usually it's, they roll out the family down on Earth, or the dog, or something down on Earth to kind of give them, tug at the heartstrings or connect with the individual. So it's fascinating how that pops up all the time, and yet here we are looking at TJ's near-death experience, just like all the others. And again, it's like a trolling tactic. It really is. It's like, oh, you want to stay with us? You don't really care about going back to Earth. Well, yeah, sure. You have a choice. You don't have to go. But yet they're always coming back. Always. And there's always some sort of lure that's there that ends up resulting in them coming back. Incredible.
I didn't care to come back here. I didn't care about anything going on here. I didn't care about anybody here. And I start tripping. Not over the fact that I may be dead, but I started to trip over the fact that this place made me feel so good that I didn't care to be alive or come back here. And it really tripped me out because, I start saying to myself, how do I not care? I have a son. I have an apartment.
Boom. There you go. Now, trust me, when he is going through this thought process, we've seen it so many times now. This is the matrix, the entity, whatever you want to call it, the AI construct, throwing these things at him, right? He's saying it as if, oh, I started thinking about this, that. Trust me. We've seen it so many times now that this is implanted. This is purposeful. Because what was this thought process before this? The chain of events is that, like, I didn't care. I wanted to stay there. I wasn't concerned or really thinking twice about my life on Earth. Then the tables turn magically when that thought process is starting to come out. And boom. Oh, thinking about his son, thinking about his bills, his apartment, yada, yada, yada. Just like we would expect to see. It just happens constantly.
I didn't care to be alive or come back here. And it really tripped me out because, I start saying to myself, how do I not care? I have a son. I have an apartment. I have rent. I have bills. I have responsibilities. I got family. I got this. I have that. I got this. I got that. I got this. I got that.
Imagine having to think about bills when you've finally died. Ugh. Oh my God. That's what hell is made of right there, my friends.
And I'm tripping over that because it's like, how? How can I not care to even come back to my son? So that the fact that the place was able to make me feel like that had me trip. I started to trip over it. Now, as I'm talking to myself and tripping over that fact that I feel this place makes me feel this good, I noticed the entity in my peripheral because I'm like looking down to my right, thinking this stuff, tripping, saying this stuff to myself. And I noticed the entity in my peripheral now looking at me like with his eyes squinched, and not like he didn't look at me as if he was confused at my reaction, more like he was studying my reaction that I was having in front of him. And
so he was studying him. You know, interesting way that he is looking at this, right? Because I don't know why, but my gut. All right, you're fucking out of here, Bassall. You're fucking gone. One minute. I was suspecting that's where it might be going. Anyways, let's move along. What the hell was I saying?
confused at my reaction, more like,
okay, yeah, confused. He's kind of, you know, reading him, analyzing him, wondering about, you know, how he may react, studying TJ, etc. So I don't know about you guys, but for some reason, I kind of get this gut feeling that maybe this is like one of the new entities. You know, maybe it's like one of these, well, not like, you know, entity in training for their position or something, assuming it's not an AI construct. I mean, that's kind of where my gut goes with almost all this stuff. But that doesn't mean that there isn't some sort of parasitic essence being behind it either, right? So I don't know, just throwing it out there. Perhaps it's an entity in training.
he was studying my reaction that I was having in front of him. And I asked myself in my head as I'm looking down, I'm like, well, if this is what I think it is, then what am I talking to? You know, who am I talking to? What is this me? Who is this thing? And I look up at the entity slowly and I ask it, so what are you? Or who are you? And after I ask it that, I instantly end up on the ground, the bottom of the mountain, on the.
So the entity's like, I don't like that question, and just freaking banishes him. Like, I mean, it's like, who are you? Okay, getting a little too close to home here, I guess. You know, he hasn't gotten to that portion of the training manual yet.
And after I ask it that, I instantly end up on the ground, the bottom of the mountain, on the ground. And I have the mountain in front of me, and the mountain was so high that you couldn't see the top of it. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I must have just came down from the top of this mountain, and from the top of this mountain must be where the entity, where I was talking to the entity, it must be where it lives, it must be where it's at right now, whatever. I came down from the top of this mountain that's in front of me now. And I look around.
Maybe some religious connotations there, perhaps. But we didn't really get anything in terms of religion, any sort of background for him. So maybe. I don't know.
Where the
What do you guys think?
entity, where I was talking to the entity, it must be where it lives, it must be where it's at right now, whatever. I came down from the top of this mountain that's in front of me now. And I look around, and all I was able to see was fine cut green grass, low cut, fine green grass that stretched out as far as I was able to see in all directions. And I remember thinking to myself that the grass looked so fine and low cut, and that someone had to keep up with it, like cut it and treat it every single day. And I remember thinking to myself how impossible it had to be for someone to be able to do that, because this grass stretched out in all directions as far as I can see. So I look back at the mountain after I get over how fine the grass looks, and for some reason I sort of squint my eyes at the mountain and like focus in on it, and I start to see the entity's face show up all throughout the mountain.
Damn.
And then I noticed to the left side of my foot, a sunflower had sprouted out of the ground, the grass, probably 6 inches out of the ground. And I looked at the sunflower, and then I squinted my eyes at it, and I started to notice the entity's face all throughout the sunflower. Then I started to notice the entity's face show up all throughout the grass.
Wow.
And in my peripheral, as I'm looking at the grass from a distance, I noticed the entity's face now showing up in the sky, in the flat white sky. And
talk about creepy. Talk about creepy as hell. I don't know why, but this kind of gave me some chills, because I don't know if you recall the case that I went over. It was a coma experience where the guy was dealing with the machine. It's one of the sickest. It is the sickest experience I've ever brought on the channel. I mean, it's vile. And you know, it's like the very first horror broke me before I dealt with the machine. And any of you who have listened to that experience, I mean, this is nasty, but I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but there's a possible kind of comparison here. You know, the entities appearing in the grass, appearing, you know, all over the mountain and now in the sky. And with the Coma Diaries episode 1 case, his name was Robert Mobley. His son, he was like in a field, and his son was sprouting up and popping up everywhere in the field. And his son was like in these situations where Robert had to go save him, and he just could not save him. He was like losing every single time, and seeing untold horrors that I'm not even going to repeat, but I'll leave a link for anyone interested. Viewer discretion advised big time on that one. But for some reason, when I'm hearing this description, I kind of get a feeling it's just got a similar connection, kind of, in a weird way. Anyways, let's move along.
Peripheral, as I'm looking at the grass from a distance, I noticed the entity's face now showing up in the sky, in the flat white sky. And I, for some reason, looking at his face in the sky, sort of caught my attention a lot more than the flower, the mountain, and the grass. And so I'm looking at the sky for maybe a few minutes, 2 minutes. And then the sky sucked me into it. So it sucks me into it. And here I am again, insanely, extremely, extremely, extremely fast shooting through the white space again.
Let's just kind of break this down one more time here. He questions, you know, what are you? What are you? Who are you? And as soon as that happens, things get really weird. As if, I mean, they were already kind of weird, but they get creepy and weird. And then, well, what do you know? He's on his way back. Remember, he was already dealing with those memories on Earth that were, in my opinion, being transmitted to him in an effort to get him back. But soon as he started questioning what this entity was all about, boom. Bye-bye. Back to Earth.
But this time, I'm shooting downward. It feels like the altitude feels like I'm falling, and I'm falling extremely, 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 extremely fast, shooting downward. And the mechanical wall appears again. It fades away, and now I'm still falling, but not shooting down. I'm sort of lightly gliding downward now, right? And it got slower and slower and slower and slower to the point where, you know, I got a thought, okay, I'm about to fall back into my body. So it got to a point where I felt myself curl up like a ball and sort of embrace, you know, crashing into my body, because that's what I thought was going to happen. It felt like I was going to sort of crash into it. So I curl up like a ball all the way until I just feel my body feel flat and straight, as if I'm laying in a bed. And I open my eyes, and I'm back in the hospital room, and the male doctor is on the right side of me, fidgeting or messing with the machinery that they had next to me. And he looks at me, and I tell him that I just saw God, in that he had his face was squares of every skin tone from black to white, and that he showed me that he was in all things. And right, and when I said all things, I remember waving my hand like he was in all things. And the male doctor or nurse, he was a nurse, looks at me with a surprised face, as if he was surprised or shocked at what it was I was saying. And it threw me off, because in my head, I'm like, well, you're a nurse or a doctor working at a strong hospital. You should deal with death all the time. This should be, I'm sure I'm not the first, I shouldn't be the first person to come back here and have a wild experience, you know, or the first story, you know, person he's heard say something like that. And before he can even respond, the female doctor, because she was in a white coat, the female doctor cuts him off, walking up to me, and says, very casually and playfully, oh, you scared us. You scared us. We thought we lost you. And you know what? For 6 seconds, we did lose you. And she was so playful and casual that it threw me off. I didn't believe that, you know, that a doctor should deliver news that, you know, your heart stopped during the procedure in a playful, casual type of manner. At the time, I felt like I understand why they do it now, and it's really to keep the patient calm. Because
no, they overdosed this guy. That's what happened in the hospital. Let's just call it what it is.
I'm pretty sure they didn't want my heart rate to stop again.
they're trying to make light of the situation, but you know, this poor guy got OD'd for Christ's sake.
So she notices, I think she was able to tell in my facial expression that I didn't really like her delivery, or that her delivery made me feel, I don't know, like maybe I didn't die, maybe she was just playing with me, or that she was just playing, she was so playful and casual with it. So she brings the chart to me, the screen, with all your, you know, the waves. It's like 4, 5, 6 waves, and one of them is your heart wave, another one's your brain wave. I don't know what the other 3 lines are or waves are, but she brings me the chart and shows me my heart line flat for 6 complete seconds during the procedure. When I saw it, it made my heart skip a beat. It made my heart skip a beat because it sort of confirmed the experience that I just had, because during the experience, I thought that I may have been dead. So that's my story of being dead for 6 seconds and experiencing, you know, that experience as a whole felt like 40 to 45 minutes. And it's weird because on the discharge papers, it says that I was knocked out for 3 minutes and 54 seconds. And that out of that time, 6 of those seconds, my heart was completely down and my heart was completely flat. No pulse, no beat. That experience changed a lot about me. A lot.
Okay, so that is going to wrap the NDE portion up, and just going to go to Quietus' comment really quickly. They ask, so when people talk about creating your own reality manifesting, is that delusional? Is that possible at all? Obviously, it seems like we are completely limited and at the mercy of the matrix. Okay, well, we're definitely limited when we're in the body. There's no doubt about that. We all know that. But you can prove to yourself that you are a powerful creator being by things like astral projection, heightened meditation sessions, lucid dreaming even. The reason why things seem so crazy and that we don't have power is because everyone that we go over, virtually everyone, interacts with this system. But there's been cases that I've shown where someone is just kind of minding their own business, like even an NDE. And there's not a lot of them because the NDE is so overpowering. Like the interactions with the entities, the light, all this stuff, it's so overpowering that when we do get glimpses of before, let's just say the Matrix steps in or someone interacts with the entities, the Matrix, the light, an orb, whatever the case may be, then they're basically chilling, doing their thing. They're just kind of checking out the scenery and doing what they do. But really, I think it can't be stated enough that, you know, not interacting with this stuff is so important. And you can prove your creator being abilities. You can banish things out of existence instantly if you want. You can create. You can transfer between realms. It doesn't mean you're going to know where you're going to end up, but you can do all sorts of crazy things. Now, when you have like the trauma component, or when you have, like, for instance, even with breakthrough trips, for as chaotic as those things are, there is still a level of control that can be implemented, but it's just a lot more difficult because there's still this drug connection too, right? And but even in those states, if someone has actually breaks through, not just kind of just chilling in the lower astral, or kind of like half-assed out of their body, a lot of crazy things can be proven. But because it's so chaotic, and because it's related to a substance, it's just, by reading reports and listening to what the others have to say, it's not as easy to garner that control. So I think, if anything, kind of going over all types of experience or cases has proved to me is that when I'm on my way out, I don't want to be all drugged up. I just don't. I think it's better to, go out where you're as lucid as possible and not under the influence. I mean, maybe like a mild sedative or something, or a mild painkiller probably isn't going to matter. But at the same time, often if you're especially like if you have a terminal disease, they're going to try to load you up with all sorts of painkillers and stuff like that to make you comfortable. And everyone should be comfortable, but you have to check in and be honest with yourself and say, hey, is the pain being relieved, and is what I'm on okay, or is it too much, right? Like, I think being as sober as possible it certainly isn't going to hurt things. Can only help, in my opinion. But at the same time, you really want to go out suffering like crazy too. So, I mean, there just has to be kind of like that middle road approach, or, the completely sober approach on the way out. So that's kind of my thought on it. But I think non-interference, shielding yourself that's everything. That's everything. So, Salty Rose says 14 grams of mushrooms killed me. Broke though. Oof. 14. That's heavy, man. That's heavy. All right, my friends. I think that's going to wrap things up for tonight. I want to say hello and give a special thanks to everyone watching over on Odysee, Rumble, Twitch, and of course here on YouTube too. I hope you all are doing well. Don't work too hard next week. And feel free to check out that video if you want, the Coma Diaries episode 1. But again, I'm warning you in advance. It is brutal. So I'm going to leave a link to the Odysee link in the Odysee chat, but Twitch, Rumble, and YouTube already have a link. Puck Wayne says, going out, I hope to be shot by a jealous twin lesbian sister. Okay. And JB, hope you're doing well out there in Odysee land. And okay. So one last thing. We're going to be doing a stream this week. I think it'll probably be Thursday with Harold. It'll be a co-commentary stream. And we're going to be going over some pre-birth memories. There's like a small round table. There's 3 videos involved. We're going to try to get through as much as possible, if not all 3, but there's a lot there. So it may end up having to be a 2-parter, but we'll see. Right now we're talking about Thursday afternoon at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But that is subject to change. Just keep an eye on notifications on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and the members Discord server. And just a reminder for anyone interested, I do have memberships available on YouTube and Odysee. So if you're interested in getting a little extra content each month, feel free to check that out in the description tab. Also have, I was talking about too, the Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, where I do Truth in Gaming over on Twitch every once in a while. And also multi-stream the channel on all those. There's a Facebook there, but that's mostly for notifications as well. And the email list. Feel free to sign up for the email list. So far I haven't done anything yet with that. Okay. Looks like I just dropped connection, but then it came back. Okay. Sorry. And then, I think, last thing, if you're interested in supporting the channel as well, there's a Stripe and Stream Elements link. And of course, the super thanks here on YouTube and the hyper chats on Odysee. And your support is always appreciated, but never expected. And with Stripe and Stream Elements, both those take the least as far as fees go. YouTube takes like 30%. It's ridiculous. And I think Odysee takes about, it's not bad, like 7% or 8%, and 10, something like that. And then Stream Elements and Stripe take about 3. I know some of you ask about the fee structure because of how crazy YouTube is, but so that's it if you're interested. And the next members stream is going to be on Sunday, March 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There will be no regular streams this weekend. So after the co-commentary with Harold during this week, the next stream will likely be either the 24th or 25th. So taking off next weekend through the next week, mostly to camp. So all right, I'll catch up with y'all soon. Don't work too hard. Hope you enjoyed this one. It's a hell of a case. And see you soon. Much love.